Welcome back to LightMinded Arts, where I've been trying to help you avoid the struggling artist trap. So this is part B of my recap on the last year of interviews that I've been doing with other artists and going over some of the key points that have stuck out to me on how to avoid the struggling artist trap. Now, I'm not gonna say that everything that I've gone over in this and the last part. If you haven't caught the last part, by the way, you might wanna go back and listen to that. It also had a couple of really important things that I thought were very poignant for the recap on this year. But like all I said then, go and listen to a lot of the people that I interviewed because I'm just pulling little tidbits out from our conversation with them. Most of what I'm sharing right now is just stuff that I remember in this moment, things that stood out to me. And these might be just more personal to me. And so there might be other things in there that are more applicable to you. Yes, I'm doing this while I'm driving. That's mostly because I'm really busy right now. I've got, what do I got? I've got 3 books that I'm currently editing right now. I've got obviously this podcast. I've got a screenplay that I'm editing, and I'm in pre-production right now on my next project, which is called The Sermon. It's a kind of a different take on Moby Dick. You know, I'm not really following the story exactly. I'm following more of the Father Mapple sermon that was given in that. It's really fun. I'll have more details about that later. But for now, let's talk about some of the key things that I've learned over the last season or so of these interviews that I've conducted. And one of the ones I want to touch on most, or at least to start with, is the idea that you should execute relentlessly. Kill that toxic romanticism you have with being an artist. Now, what do I mean by that? First of all, let's deconstruct what it means to be a struggling artist. For a lot of us, our art is precious to us, and we feel that we got to go through this phase of life where our art isn't paying for itself, where it's not helping us live day to day. And a lot of us think that's awesome, that there's nothing wrong with that. And I would beg to differ. I don't like the idea of being dependent on anyone else. If you're romanticizing the struggling artist, then that means that you are leaning on somebody else to support you while hopefully your art takes off. And for a lot of us, that is a really long process. In my interview with Kern Carter, he was talking about how we have to change our mindset a little bit. Can't think that the struggling artist is a rite of passage. Holy cow, that's a noisy truck. Now, there's so many ways that you can make money while pursuing your art. Obviously, you can go get parallel jobs in that industry. So say you want to be a writer, you can go do storytelling writing, you can write for other people, ghost writing. There's a lot of opportunities for writers out there that actually pay good money. Maybe not your story, but it will help you make a living while writing. And then you can do your own personal creative work in the meantime. If you're a filmmaker, maybe it means going out and working on other people's jobs. Yeah, it might not be your movie that you're making or your YouTube video or whatever it is you want to be making, but here's the thing, you'll get paid for it, you'll also develop relationships within the industry, and you'll gain crucial skills that you need to help you when you actually do your first film. And it's like that with a lot of these things that you maybe want to be doing. Look for parallel places that you can create an income. And my personal favorite is find a job that pays really well, save your money and invest it. And then when you do break into your own career, it's almost like a retirement of sorts, where you're not retiring to relax, you're retiring to do the job that you feel like you've always meant to do, called being financially independent. Next, you can also, when you're trying to execute relentlessly, develop a micro focus. What do I mean by that? What I'm saying is that you can find little pieces within your day that you're not utilizing to their best potential. So maybe you've got 15 minutes on your commute. I mean, this is a perfect example. I am doing this podcast while I am commuting home from one of my side jobs, okay? And yeah, normally I would just have an audiobook going or be listening to the radio. But instead, I'm recording a podcast, okay? You can do this with your writing. You could dictate, and I actually have a book coming out soon. I will keep you up to date on that. If you don't know how to dictate, this will actually help you learn how to do that. It's a great resource if you want to help fill the cracks of your life. Develop a micro focus. Fill those gaps of your day with your art, no matter how small they are. Next, you need to commit to revision. Rewriting and editing is part of the job, okay? It's the same whether you're a writer, whether you're a musician, whether you're a filmmaker. We're always rewriting, revising, and editing. One of my guests, Max Shippey, said a quote that I can't help but quote all the time now, and his quote was, "Editing is writing." Sorry, I had that wrong. It was, "Writing is rewriting." And last of all, under this whole executing relentlessly and killing the toxic romanticism, is focus on completion. Ruth Douthat said that not every end ends with the end, but you do need to get to the end. We're not focused on getting to the bestseller list or getting a huge amount of people reading our books or reviewing them. I mean, that's another topic for another time, but making it across the finish line on whatever project you're working on. I've talked to people who have dozens of projects going at the same time, and they can never get to the end of any of them. Finish a project. This was something that I actually struggled with when I was first starting out. When I first got out of high school, I had so many things that I would pursue, and all of them usually ended early. I'd get super excited, super ambitious, and then I'd get distracted and move on to the next shiny object. Can't do that, okay? Finish a job, even if it's just to complete it and say you did it. When it comes to marketing, this is the second big point for the session. I've got 3 of them. The first one was execute relentlessly and avoid that toxic romanticism. This one is be your own advocate, and be an aggressive advocate at that. You can't be that artist who writes a book, sends it out in the world, and forgets it and goes into their next one. That's a nice idea. It's very romantic. It's especially if you're a bit of an introvert, it's a nice thought that maybe it'll get out there, find some legs, and go sell itself to the rest of the world. We live in an age where there's such noise that if you are completely quiet, no one will ever hear you. My guest Bria Rose mentioned that if she doesn't talk about her book, she said that if she doesn't talk about her book or about herself, nobody else will. I mean, seriously, who's going to talk about you? Maybe your parents. Who are they going to tell? They're going to tell your cousins. I mean, your family's great, but their network is limited. You got to be out there and you got to be vocal. And being vocal, you need to be concise and direct. You need to let people know who you are, why you matter. We all have such a short attention span these days. A lot of times people struggle to be clear about the message they're trying to get across or who they are. Have you ever had anybody ask you a question like, "What's your book about?" and you stumbled through the answer? I know that my first couple books, I was like that. People would ask me, "Oh, what's it about?" And I'd hum and haw for a little bit trying to figure out how to answer their question. I mean, it's a simple question. I wrote it. I should know. Be clear and precise. Know who you are, what your message is, and why it matters to somebody else. And I had several people on my show who highly recommended building up an email list. You have got to control who your audience is. And this is something that you may have heard other places before, but it is absolutely correct. Email may be outdated for some people, but it still has the highest open rate of anything. So build up your lists. Have a newsletter that you can send out. Have some way of staying in touch with your audience that is just a public forum like this podcast or like Facebook or something like that. Have something that's more personal, like an email. And then something that Sheila Slick told me once, she's a serial entrepreneur, but she mentioned that validation is important and that if we're going to fail, we need to fail fast. I've heard that from other people also. I can't remember who. I've read so many books about these kinds of things, but you know, the whole fail fast, fail often philosophy. And she mentioned that that's important for her. And for our art, it's kind of similar. Sometimes we write things that are important to us, but they have no audience. There's so many filmmakers out there, for example, that do independent film, and I've tried watching some of their movies before, and it's not because they did a bad job, because their movie was too personal to them, and it wasn't entertaining for me. And so I think this also speaks towards writing to your audience or creating towards your audience. Know who your audience is, know how big your audience is, and write to them. And if you're not sure, do something small, get it out there, make sure that it has some traction. And if it doesn't, maybe you need to rethink how you're doing your creative works. And I get it, as an artist, maybe your work is personal, that you don't really care what anyone else thinks. But if that's the case, do it in your spare time. Don't expect it to make money for you. Okay, now the third thing I wanted to go over today is to stop over preparing and start doing. This is incredibly simple, but many of us fall in the trap of procrastination and trying to get everything lined up perfectly before we jump. Now, if you know anything of my story, you know that I spent 10 years trying to get ready to do this, where I would be I'd quit my job and go full-time writing and filmmaking. For me, that was a plan that I put together. It's a plan that I executed, and I was very conscious and deliberate about it, okay? I had a time to cut it off, a time to make the transition. But even still, I fell into this trap again. So my first year of being on my own, doing my own thing, I thought, you know what, this will be a great time of year or a great time in my career to get foot surgeries. Last year, I had both of my feet worked on. I was laid up in bed for half the year or more. And obviously, I'm still hurting and struggling to learn how to walk again because of it. But I fell into this trap. I started over preparing. I started trying to build my audience before I started my work, okay? Granted, there wasn't a whole lot I could do while I was in bed, but even after I got out of bed, I found myself stuck in the marketing trap, okay? I was preparing to be successful without focusing on being a productive artist, I guess. Rory Paquette has several podcasts out there, and he reminded me that if you want to be a writer, sit down and if you want to be a podcaster, grab a microphone and start recording. Whatever it is that you want to be doing, start doing it. When I interviewed best-selling author James Rollins, he gave similar advice. He said, stop focusing on marketing and start focusing on your creative work. And even if you're not currently selling to the level you want, or you're not writing to the level you want, you're going to be more productive that way. You're going to learn on the job. Your skill and your craft is going to improve much faster as you're doing it. But at some point, you got to do it. You can't sit in school your whole life and expect to build a career from the classroom. There's a lot you can do even before you're fully established. But until then, just keep your operations lean, get your LLC up and running, grab a cheap camera, grab a cheap microphone, do whatever it takes and start producing. Oftentimes, and I love this because it's true, creativity is born out of restriction and limitation. I've built, honestly, thousands of houses. I've been a finished carpenter in many of them. And here's the thing, I don't always have the freedom to do everything I want in those houses. Those limitations often spark new ideas, new creative ways of problem solving. It's because you got limitations and maybe you're not quite ready to produce a Hollywood budget movie yet. You might be able to create something that is still uniquely yours, incredibly creative, and might even make a name for yourself. Get out there and start making, especially since today there is so much free stuff that you can take advantage of. AI is in many cases free, at least to a certain point. Friends and family are often willing to help you do things for free. It's like Sheila Slick says, don't overthink it. Progress over perfection. You wait till everything is perfect, you're gonna get stuck. That wraps up pretty much my review of the last year or so of my interviews. I still have a few interviews coming up that are very related to everything we've been going over. I've got a group of local writers that we're going to do a panel or two on and get some of their takes on. So that's going to be fun and coming up here in the near future. Be more interviews. There's also going to be more me talking to you about where I'm at in my journey, how I'm doing it, and just some of the creative things that I'm learning along the way. And there's going to be a few of these where I might just have a little bit of fun with it, and I might do this myself. I might bring people on with me to make up some stories on the fly, no editing, just put them up there. And then maybe I'll go through and turn those into radio dramas or something, and then I'll post those later, and you can just kind of see how we can actually do some of the dictating our stories. And that falls into this whole thing where you produce within the cracks of your day. And so that'll be kind of a fun experiment. I might call that series, it'll still be on this channel, but I'll probably call that Inside the LightMinded Lab, where we treat LightMinded Arts like a storytelling lab. That'll be fun, and that's upcoming. But until then, don't forget to go to my website at lightmindedarts.com. I don't have a Patreon, at least not at this time. I hope I never have to. But here's the idea. Go to my website if you want to support me. Just buy a book. That's really all I'm asking for. I don't make much money off of the books. I think I might make $1 for every book that someone buys. And buy the book. Leave a review, all I'm really asking for. And at this time, I have a couple books on my website. I've got One for the Money, Two for the Soul. I've got Hard-Boiled Cabbage, the first book in my Gearlock series. I'm actually currently editing the second book in that series, which is going to be called No Country for Goat Men. That one is going out in probably going to release that one. And then I've got one other called The Blasting Nuisance, which I'm currently editing. That one's a really fun one. Totally enjoying it. But also here in another month or two, I'm going to release my book on dictating. If you want to learn how to dictate your own stories, keep an eye out for that. There's a lot of people who either say they don't know how to write good prose, they're putting off because of that, or they're just saying, I don't have time to do this. And if that's the case, this will also help them because it helps you write your book without having to block out a big section of time and sit in front of it. You can do it like while you're commuting, while you're on the toilet, really anywhere. Anyhow, great stuff coming. I look forward to seeing where this next year will lead us, and I hope that you come along for the ride.